Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy almost 1 year anniversary. How we doing? Oh my god, that is so true that it is a non-zero chance that I could just be speaking to the void. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today. This is kind of a special stream, I think. We've got, sorry, I'm just turning down, I'm standing right now because I don't know, I felt like standing, right? I've been trying to do a lot more of that. Hello, everyone. My gosh. Thank you for joining me, for spending your valuable time with me. Today is kind of a milestone, right? I'm going to have more of a kind of formalized post. Yo, thank you for the prime sub. Hangy schmangy. Did I miss any other ones? I don't think so. All right, cool. It's a red letter day, if you will. I'm going to make a big Patreon post tomorrow. and it's going to cover a lot of what I'm covering here. So you guys, as per usual, are the first to hear. I don't have anything I would say it's going to be all that surprising, but I thought, I don't know, y'all. It's been a crazy fucking year. It's been, to be honest with you, it's been a very difficult year of just a lot of work, a lot of growth, a lot of changes to how we do a lot of stuff with Wildlander, a lot of changes for me personally, a lot of changes for me professionally. I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience both this year and kind of take a look further back than that with this project, because it kind of informs a lot of what happened this year. And perhaps most importantly, or certainly what I think is going to be the most interesting to y'all, is what the future is going to look like. What Wildlander kind of will be moving forward, right? So, you know, just some casual reflection, a chill Friday 1-year anniversary stream. I have some stats for you guys, which I think was kind of fun to put together. Not anything crazy extensive, but just something I thought would be fun to kick off this day of reflection, shall we? Right? So, for anyone who was not there, doesn't remember, hasn't been told, Wildlander launched on January 7th of 2021, right? That was almost exactly 1 year ago today. We are off by 1 day. That's when the Patreon post, the news post, is going to go up. And that day was, if you just count Wildlander, that was, I would say, approximately a year and a half of straight work. It was not entirely full-time, but a lot of it was. The vast majority of the time that I spent was me still trying to do Wildlander full-time exclusively, modding full-time exclusively. So a lot of that was just your typical, you know, work days, but spent on building the mod pack, right? And it was a rebuild from scratch that really built on the foundation. Yo, 25 months. Thank you, CP. My gosh. That is wild. That is nuts. There's a section programmed into this little spiel for all of you guys. I'll get there. I'm trying to retain my focus better than I usually do. So yeah, that was about a year and a half of work, and it really built on of course, the lessons, the foundation of Ultimate Skyrim. Ultimate Skyrim, for those of you who weren't around for that, was my first, you know, mod list, really my first modding project, or at least modding project that I made available to anybody besides myself, because, you know, there's a lot of modders who just kind of tweak on their own and never share their stuff. Man, that seems like forever ago now. Dang, that is wild. Yeah, so Ultimate Skyrim was actually not even... I've told this story before, so I apologize to any of you who have not heard it. Or who have already heard it. Yo, thank you for 5 gifted subs, CP. Much appreciated. You're the king, brother. The story of Ultimate Skyrim is that I actually never meant to make it available to anyone else, right? For those of you who don't know this, I went to school for film. I was a film theory major in undergrad. My original plan, at the time that I was building Ultimate Skyrim, I was still doing stuff kind of in the entertainment industry and still thinking maybe that I wanted to be a filmmaker. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do yet. I was just kind of, you know, living here in LA and working odd jobs and kind of figuring out what exactly it was that I wanted to spend my time doing. We shot a couple short films. We wrote some stuff. I had a very cool job, or it would have been really cool if I got paid at it. I don't even know if you can call this a job, but this job I didn't get paid at. It was an unpaid internship, which is actually illegal now. I'm not going to say who it was because I don't know if I can get in trouble for that, but I had a job where essentially what I got to do was read just really incredible scripts, really incredible stories, the same scripts that you'd see. This unnamed producer that I worked for is a pretty big name producer who would get the scripts, same scripts you'd see go across the desks at like WME or CAA, right? So for those of you who aren't familiar, those are like the major kind of like agencies, just production houses, right? Those aren't whatever. So I got to read these really incredible stories, and that's when I definitely knew that I wanted to do something with stories. I would argue that most of anything we consume or are interested in as humans are kind of related to stories, but that's a different conversation. I knew that I wanted to do something with storytelling. And at the same time, I was actually, my boy, Tyler, y'all might know Tyler by this point. He introduced me to a couple Let's Play channels at the time. This was right around kind of Let's Plays were getting really sort of popular, and people really kind of wanted to see if this is something they could do. I thought this was like a great concept. I've always loved video games. I thought it would be fun to do, and at the same time, I was really interested in like YouTube video essays, right? Which is another thing that was becoming popular at the time, and also is more related than most things to film. So yeah, this is kind of what I was trying to do when Ultimate Skyrim came around. I was dabbling in just like YouTube video content, video essays. I started to realize that the Let's Play stuff is cool. I felt like it was a little, even by that point, it was kind of getting a little bit played out. I think there was some, not to say that you couldn't, there are Let's Players who started around that time who, did incredible work and blew up and yada yada, but that wasn't me. I found that I kind of enjoyed the video essay component a little bit more, right? Because what I'm really passionate about is like game design and what makes games fun, what makes them resonant, how do you build a game at all, which is something that I think a lot of, when you play games, like when you consume any sort of media, you really develop your tastes. You can develop really good taste, and you know better than many how these things kind of might be built on the back end, right? But I think any critic in any field will tell you that there's a real difference between theory and practice, and there's a real experiential gap between analyzing something and making something. Yeah, and it's funny thinking about that now, because maybe sometimes, do you guys ever get this feeling like when you look back at the choices you've made and what's led you to where you are, that it was kind of always going to be the way that it went, right? It's kind of an esoteric statement. Hopefully you get what I mean. Anyway, video essays. So I was really interested in video essays. There was a lot of content creators who I really loved, who were just making the most amazing things. I loved watching them. People like, I still do. I don't watch as much stuff these days because I just don't have the time. I'm trying to make more time, but people like Matthew Matosis, people like Joseph Anderson, a lot of long form content, people like Dunkey who have short form content and really obviously strive to say something meaningful in a short time succinctly, which I think is probably the biggest writing challenge that there is. People like even Aaron Hansen has his, Sequelitis series. I loved the way that he melded analysis and humor and animation. Obviously, I know there are people who don't necessarily agree with the conclusions that these creators draw, but that's immaterial to the point. The point was, I felt like I had some stuff that I wanted to say, maybe, and I wanted to see if I could do it, right? And I've always liked writing. I've always wanted to do like voice stuff, and it kind of melded those two goals together, right? So yeah, I started trying to do that stuff while I was working on the side. and I had a lot of fun. And I think some of my really, really early video essays are some of my favorite things that I've made. The problem, and this will be a recurring theme, and we're going to talk about this a little bit today. This is, you guys hold me to this, because this is the, what I'm introducing now, you could call the, this is foreshadowing for what I'd call the larger point of what I'm going to be talking about, what I'm saying, and what I'm saying in tomorrow's post. But I found that when I did the video essays, it took me a really, really long time to make them, right? Now, part of this was inevitable. There are a lot of components. I was trying to do animations. I did a little bit of freelance at the time as an editor, but very, very little. I still wasn't a fantastic editor. Wasn't a fantastic animator either. My film degree was largely, we had production classes, but it was a largely theory-based major, right? Which I think was really cool in a lot of ways. What that means is that we did a lot of analysis, a lot of critical theory, a lot of stuff that I think at the time we considered it very esoteric, and I think every film student at the time wants to be doing production, right? Like most film students want to be somewhere like USC. They want to be somewhere where the production is the focus and you get to make things. And there's a lot of value to that too, because the first things that you make in just about anything are not going to be great, or at the very least, you're going to learn so much. And, you know, the next thing you have to, anything we do, we iteratively improve, right? So yeah, I was building out these video essays. It was taking me a long time. Part of that was just how it had to be, because I was trying to build these skills I didn't really have. So, you know, it takes a while. It takes a while to learn how to do the stuff that you're trying to do. And also, when you're coming from, I think most of the time, let's say that you're a big fan of film and you want to start making films, you can end up in this really difficult spot, because if you're lucky, your taste is good enough to where you know if something's good or not. It's unlucky in a sense as well, because it puts you in this weird spot where it's like, I know what good looks like. I know that the stuff I'm making isn't there yet, right? Like, you can see the gap. So you try really hard to, like, it takes you a lot longer to make something good, right? If you were able to make something good at all. I'm using good as a very general term here, but hopefully you catch my drift. So I was taking a long time to produce these video essays, and I was proud of the end product. Sometimes I go back and watch them, and there's things that I would change, but for where I was and what they were supposed to be, I'm proud of those things. I think that they're cool. You can actually find them if you go way back, or actually maybe on the front page of the Wildlander YouTube, there's, like, in fact, here, let me check. I might still have like a playlist up somewhere. If you go to like playlists, I do. So you can, there's like, oh, I put it video editing portfolio. So probably my essays are in there. I use that for like freelance. I'm proud of the things that I made back then, but like many things do, it took me a lot of time. Here's the dark side of stuff taking me a long time to do. I'm pretty much the stereotypical, you know, ADHDer, executive dysfunction, terrified of judgment and failure, procrastinator, perfectionist, right? This style of doing things, I think, is very common. I think that there's a lot of people, you could argue that most anybody experiences many of those types of anxieties from at one point or another, obviously to varying degrees. I'm very much this kind of person, right? So there was a certain freedom when you're making stuff and you don't have an audience yet, right? You can be not as great, and it doesn't matter so much. The second people start to pay attention is when it starts to get even scarier. And even then, it's a little scary. It's still, you really want to make sure that the stuff that you make and you put out is like perfect, quote unquote, so that you can shield yourself from criticism, and so that you can, you know, hopefully make people think that you're good, and all the other, I think, largely insecurity-driven reasons why people procrastinate and focus so much on perfectionism. Yo, thank you for 12 months, Kevin. So yeah, this was me then, even, and again, this is the recurring trend that you'll see. But at the very least, I was like, okay, it's taking me longer to make these video essays than I had hoped. The YouTube algorithm, at least at the time, I imagine it's there's a component of this still. But the algorithm at the time really wanted you to have consistent uploads, right? This was a big focus. You saw this with like, Let's Plays and stuff, especially. So I was like, fuck, if I'm going to be releasing a video essay on this pace, like once every like 3 or 4, 5, 6 months, I got to have something in between. I can't just have, and like, like my first couple of essays, right? If I manage to gather any sort of audience, I can't just leave these people hanging for like this many months. So I was like, I need filler content. I need content that is hopefully good, but content that I can produce relatively consistently, that can exist between my, more intense video essays. And I think the number one rule of content is that you want to be making something that you would find interesting. And 2, you want to be making something that you can't find anywhere else, right? I think these are kind of like 2 of the core components of good anything. Doesn't matter if it's movies or books or writing or what have you, games. So I was like, fuck, what do I have that is unique that also is something that I can produce consistently? And where I landed was Ultimate Skyrim, or what eventually became Ultimate Skyrim. See, I promise, it might take us a while to get there, but there's a rhyme to the reason to the madness. So I'd been modding for a pretty long time at that point. I started when I was a kid with like Morrowind and Oblivion. Been modding Elder Scrolls specifically. I modded Skyrim quite a lot when it first came out. I spent, every hour is tangent hour. There's hopefully not as much, and that's ultimately where we're going to be getting to. When Skyrim came out, I was like beyond stoked. I was in undergrad. I'm pretty sure in fact, I know for a fact that I was a sophomore in college because I remember where I was when it came out. I remember where my computer was. Ultimately. That's good. Oh, thank you, mate. I just remember, like many of us, I was really enthralled. I played Skyrim. I told myself, okay, I'm not going to mod so much right at the beginning. I want to get a sense of what this game is as a game, and then maybe I'll dabble. Obviously, by 100 hours in, I was already got the modding itch. And I just spent off and on my entire time in undergrad kind of dabbling in Skyrim modding. And I would, it was more extensive than anything I'd done previously. But still, by today's standards and by what we can do now, really, really basic. I was like just learning the basics about huge mod lists and incompatibilities and barely even how to patch things. Like the closest thing to a patch that I ever managed to make back then was just, like finding patches for mods. And there's this preeminent idea, I think, with people who've not yet delved into like manual patching and stuff, that if all you can do is just find the proper arrangement of patches and mods, your list will be solid. It won't have any conflicts, and that'll be the end of it. Of course, that is not the case, not with how Bethesda games are built. At some point, if you want to get semi-serious, you'll have to be diving into these tools, right? So eventually I did that. That's where I was at by the time that I was considering this Ultimate Skyrim project. And anyway, skipping unimportant parts, it's 2015, late 2015, early 2016, I can't really remember. And I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do to make my filler content for my YouTube channel. I have this build of Skyrim that I have been kind of picking at and improving, and just kind of, the way all of us do. We have our personal game that we've been building for however long. And I think it's pretty cool. And I think it presents a style of gameplay that is not really what you see out there, especially not with Skyrim, right? So I was like, I'm going to film myself playing my build. I'm going to call it Ultimate Skyrim. Or I think that originally it was supposed to be, it went through several name iterations, something related to Requiem. It was confusing. But eventually I settled on Ultimate Skyrim. I don't know. I thought it was punchy and worked well enough. And it's what I imagine. The problem with Ultimate Skyrim as a name is that most of us consider whatever our personal build of Ultimate Skyrim to be, or of Skyrim to be, his ultimate, whatever. Requiem Reborn, that's what it was. Yeah, so this was my build of Skyrim that I was going to play for my audience. And it was going to be like, it was roguelike, because I thought that made for a good video series, and it was permadeath. I think that those stakes really make for a good video series. And the fast forward version of this part of the story is that I started to see a lot of engagement and response on these Ultimate Skyrim videos, right? Yeah, the Donkey's video title. That one was a happy coincidence, right? Because that one definitely came out. I can't remember if it came out before my first videos. I can't remember, but I remember thinking, oh shit, I wonder if this will bring me any like hits in the algorithm, right? So yeah, I started to see a lot of people, at least a lot relative to, you know, my typical no views, right? Engaging with me about this Skyrim project, and they thought, you know, it was cool. And the question that I started to get over and over and over was like, how do I play this? How can I install this and play this for myself? And if you go back and watch the original introduction video, you'll see things like the Hall of Heroes, where you get like a little readout of your character and like all the things that they got up to, and then some other little bits where it was really confusing. People thought that was going to be like in the game that they could play. And that whole video was supposed to be about my video series only. It was never supposed to be people playing it, right? So that became a source of confusion, fun fact. But anyway, yeah, I was sitting there like, fuck, like, okay. People seem to like this. I'm having a really good time playing it and making it, because, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but who among us fucking modders doesn't love to sit and chat about the thing that they're making and why they added this and what they think that needs and all that kind of shit? And that's like what I got to do. And again, it was just really fun to make it. It felt like, you know, like, damn, I'm not just making content here, I'm like helping to create this experience. And I found that was really, really enthralling for me. And this is what I meant when I said, you know, it's funny to think back and imagine that I wouldn't kind of end up doing. I'm lucky to be doing what I do, that's for sure, like endlessly. But it's just so funny. I remember, so this is, I promise this is as personal as I'll get with this video. When I was a little kid, my mom passed away, right? And my mom was just the champion of my life, and she always supported me and was just really one of the sweetest people you could ever meet. And I remember her telling me, and like my grandma and my family, my grandma told me this like years later, my mom was the first person who introduced me to video games. And I mean, it was, you could say I took to it. I was a big fan with my Super Nintendo and my, you know, Mario All-Stars. And I guess she told my grandma at some point that, like, you know, because they were like, should he really be spending all of this much time on these games, right? And my mom told me, you know, just you watch, like one day he's going to be making these. And I don't know, like when I heard that, my grandma told me that like years later, maybe like 5 years ago. I was already doing this stuff, and I was like, well, mom had it figured out from the beginning, right? Mom was right. And I really found that of all the different things that I tried doing, making games, modding, creating a gaming experience was what I enjoyed the most. And it's not easy. Any of you, I'm preaching to the choir here, like, modding really is, it depends on what you're doing, I guess, but honestly, I don't even make those distinctions. Like, when you're modding stuff, it's game development. You're doing the same thing that the game developers are doing. You're just doing it unofficially and for free, typically, you would say. Obviously, it's a little bit different now, which has been really cool to see. But yeah, you're doing game development. You're thinking about I would kind of argue that like game development, game design, first and foremost, is just what design of anything else is, where you're thinking about the kind of experience that you want to play, or in some cases, thinking about the kind of experience that ideally you and other people might want to play, right? And trying to make that happen. Or if you had an idea and you tried to execute it and your execution wasn't quite up to snuff, you figure out how you can improve it. Or if you had an idea and your execution was fine, but the idea turned out to be not kind of what you hoped it would be or whatever anyway, and you're iteratively improving. Like, this is what design is at the most basic level. And it's fun. It's really fun to do. And so anyway, I was like, fuck, okay, what if I pivoted into doing this shit? Like, what if this was the kind of what I made my niche, my bread and butter? What if I made Ultimate Skyrim? What if I made it so that other people could play it, right? And that's kind of where it all began. Yeah, Rasputin, no kidding. I'm very lucky in that regard, that's for sure. So at that point, it was like, okay, how do we do that? How do we make this playable for other people besides me, right? Because you can't have like Skyrim didn't have mod packs. At that time in the community, mod pack was kind of a dirty word. It wasn't even kind of, it was a dirty word, because mod packs, the only way that they had existed in the community at the time was in these kind of sketchy, like all-in-one downloads that you would get off of like torrent sites. A lot of them I think originated in like the Russian modding community, because the Russian modding community was not quite as stipulative in terms of like permissions and what you could and couldn't do. So like the big problem with these mod packs is that they redistributed mods without permission from the original authors. To people who are used to like open source software, that's not, I mean, they would credit the authors, but they would include their files anyway. People who are used to like super open source stuff, that might not sound crazy, but that's the Skyrim, the Bethesda modding scene, and really kind of anywhere that existed primarily in the Nexus. These are not what you call full open source modding scenes. These are closed source modding scenes generally, or like source refers to code. You can have open source mods and closed permissions, but it's a different permission scene than something like, you know, other games where you can just kind of hand around mod packs. It was a lot more, you know, Parlor versus Cathedral, yada, yada, yada. So it's just a different scene. There's pros and cons to both approaches, but they're different, right? So in the Skyrim modding scene, there really wasn't these Minecraft style one-click installs. The closest thing you had to like a mod pack was what was called, and these still exist, modding guides, right? So a modding guide is something that will help you achieve the same experience, ideally, on your machine as like the guide creator, but you kind of do it manually, right? Like you go through the guides. They have the advantages of teaching you so much about modding and why certain things are the way that they are. They're a really fun learning experience. But if you're not interested in the learning part, the con is that they're very cumbersome. It's super prone to user error because you're doing everything manually. Even if your instructions are perfect, which no instructions can be, that's still the case. It's still very, very error prone. And so that's just kind of what the scene was like, right? And so what I decided to do, most of the guides at the time were on the STEP website, STEP, stepmodifications.com, I believe is still the URL. I remember going through the step guides, looking at how they did things, learning from those, and just trying to make my own guide with a huge focus on accessibility and making it as simple as possible, so that ideally, you know, anybody could kind of pick it up and play. So I, with the help of my good friend Tyler, who honestly has been instrumental every step of the way in this project. Also, people still following step guides in 2023, there's nothing wrong with that. There's some cool ass guides out there still. You still have stuff like Lexi's, right, that wants to be a guide and not an installable mod pack first and foremost. they're there for the teaching and for that component, and it's really, really cool. They're just different things, right? They have different goals. One is to be this kind of like fun, teaching, detail-oriented thing, and the goal of the other one is generally to let people who are not as interested in learning that stuff be able to play, right? We set about building our own guide, which came in the form of a custom website that was hosted on BitBalloon, it was called at the time. I believe it's called Netlify now or something like that. Yeah, so we built this custom. I say we. This was Tyler's always been far better at design. I mean, he's a real designer in a lot of sense, like a visual designer. He also picked up like website code far, far faster than I did. So he helped me put together. I've showed this website off before on stream, but let's see if we can't find it. I go to archive.org. Search for, here we go, ultimateskyrim.bitballoon.com. So again, apologies for those of you who have seen this already. Yeah, some of you I know are OGs who have been here since this time, which is absolutely crazy to me. So this is not going to be new for all of you on archive.org. But this was how we did it. The very first installable versions of Ultimate Skyrim were, oh, and by the way, I skipped this part, but I shouldn't have. The time between when I was like, okay, I'm going to make this like something that anyone can download, right? And when we got it available for people, made it publicly available, was like 8 months of development. That was back when like my idea of a mod list was really just like a giant compatibility patch that took all of the mods and everything they did and made it work the way that they were supposed to, which obviously is not the case if there are like conflicts and improper patching. So really the first version of Ultimate Skyrim was ultimately just, a compatibility patch that hopefully made sure everything worked properly, right? There was no proprietary features, there was nothing really added in that sense, just made to work, which unto itself took me 7 months, right? And again, there's the perfectionism component, but also there's just the part, and me learning how to do a lot of the stuff that I was doing for the first time. But really, there's just the part where it takes a long time. It takes a long time to do this stuff, and I know y'all know that because you do it too. Let's grab, this is July 21st, 2017. Let's see if we can get a snapshot here. Come on, Wayback Machine. Here. This might blind you. Actually, it might auto dark mode, which would be cool. You should be able to fish everywhere, Meloro. Some files in the server. Okay, well, this is it. Here. I'm gonna dark mode this. So, don't avert your eyes if that's going to be a problem. No, I'm not going to terminate the Wildlander project. Oh, I'm sorry. Did it sound like I was going to I guess I am being kind of esoteric. No. I'm not terminating the At least I can tell you right now, I have no plans to terminate the Wildlander project in 2023. I apologize if that's how it seemed. Like I was building up to some sort of dramatic, what's it called? Thingy. Oh, this one. Okay, no, we got the back in there. So this is what it looked like, right? It was just a website that existed with a few pages to help you install Ultimate Skyrim. And it told you bit by bit how to do it. This is kind of the, core of the website is this next page, which takes forever to load, even if it's not on archive.org, because it's a behemoth of a page. But yeah, I'll show you how it worked. I mean, maybe I will if it loads. Here, we can take it off dark mode. Yeah, Armand. Hell yeah. Yeah, I have that setting enabled, Meloro. I also have a plugin that does it manually. I think Monique, what Lexi, I believe, has said, I'm paraphrasing here, but I believe she said this in the past, because they did have one for a little bit, but I think it's always just been that they're more interested in the guide and everything that the guide kind of brings. Wow, that's harder to look at in dark mode than it is in light mode. Ooh, boy. Is that hard for you guys to look at too? It's like an optical illusion. It makes me feel like I'm like looking at one of those books where you're supposed to see like the image behind the other image. Come on, please. Well, here, I'm gonna put this just so it's not so difficult to look at. Usually my backgrounds are pretty nice, so let's put that over here. Actually, I'll put it over here so you guys don't have to look at it. Well, we'll assume that this is gonna load in a second. It's very cumbersome. It took like 10 hours to do your first time. But I'm really proud of what this website was, because I think that even, and hey, some of you guys who are here, you can tell me if this was your experience or if you had a different experience or opinion. I felt like even for as difficult as this process was still, it was still, easier or an accessibility improvement on what was currently on offer, right, from other guides. Here we go. There it is. Yeah, here you go. Approximate time, long AF. Oh, we even included the file size. That's nice. There's like a little thing that I whipped up in Photoshop to show you kind of how to do it. And just basic instructions, it's hard to make instructions. It's hard to design instructions that work well. It really is. Yeah, Wildlander New Edition. Oh, is this Hades playing in the background? Yeah, so this was it. You would scroll, and let's see, you got this link would take you to, the page. You got the author page. You got the specific file that you want to grab, right? You got a little description, which I'm actually going to be bringing these back after a fashion because I really miss this. It was really fun to get to say for each mod kind of a little blurb and why I liked them so much and why I felt like they were a good fit for the build, right? I missed that a lot. I'll be bringing that back. And then you had this little additional installation dropdown, which would tell you the faux mod instructions, right? So you just had, for each mod, this series of very manual instructions. And ideally, by the end of it, you will have a working build on your hands, assuming that you followed all of them correctly. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of people who bounced off, right? Because this is insane. This is, if you're someone who is just wanting to play, you don't really have as much concern for the rest of this stuff. This is too much. You're not going to do that. And that's how I always felt. I felt like it was great that as many people used it as they did, but I just felt like there were so many more people out there who would love to play the experience who just didn't have the time or the willingness to spend 10 hours at minimum. Like, because what if you mess something up and you're trying to... This is back in the day, too, when, like, I don't even think that, like, the original team members were here yet, so I was trying to develop and do support at the same time. The support volume was probably a little less because, again, there's not that many people who are crazy enough to attempt something like this. But it's like it's a lot of work, right, for everyone involved. That brings us into the era of Automaton. Yes, so some of you, I've seen a couple of you mention this. This is where Automaton comes in. So our good friend, I'm going to call him Metherol. I don't know if he's comfortable with us sharing his real name. I don't think he cares, but either way. So Metherol is an extremely talented coder who decided that he wanted to build an open source, simple, intuitive, well-designed, easy to use mod pack installer software, right? It was just, I mean, that's what he wanted to do, and that's what he made. Every single thing that I said there, I would argue Automaton achieved. It was really fucking cool. And most importantly, because again, this scene was not mod pack friendly, right? The way that we kind of respected that was that no one's files were redistributed. What Automaton would do is it would do exactly what Wabbajack does, right? Which is that there's no files that we don't have the rights to distributed. it just grabs them from the Nexus, the way that, whatever, when you click the download manager link, same way. And it would just build it on your machine the same way that Wabbajack does. And it was really, really cool. And Ultimate Sky, I was working with Metherol to like test Automaton and like get it working, because at this point, it was 2019. I had been working on Ultimate Skyrim at some point, I can't remember exactly when, but I shifted to like full time, right? Or tried to. I opened a Patreon. I couldn't really offer much on it because, you can't put like mod files on Patreon. So it was mostly like what it is now, which is like donations. But my plan, so Metherol told me that he was making this open source software, right? GPL3, GPLv3, whatever it's called. The most open of open. For those of you who don't know this, open source software, you can, like, here, let's go and look at, I was just looking at this the other day. So GPL3, the thing about GPL3 is that it allows for commercial use, right? The only stipulation on these like super open source licenses is that anything you distribute, as long as it's not like a dual license situation, anything you distribute has to have the same license, right? But other than that, you can do whatever you want with it. You can offer it for free. You can charge for it. You can turn it into a service. It's yours to do what you want with. There's a ton of businesses that are predicated on stuff like this, right? Like, for any e-commerce people out there, this is an example that's prime in my head because I do a lot of editing for like various e-commerce businesses now. But there is an open source e-commerce platform called Magento. It's, it's almost like Linux in that it's contributed to by all of these different contributors. It's just really fucking cool, like very highly powered, but very like technical and developer focused e-commerce platform. So the entire thing is available for free, and all of the source code is completely open. If you want to grab it for yourself, implement it, build stuff on it, do whatever you want. Adobe at one point offered actually, I think they still do this. I think it's still based on Magento. It's whatever Adobe Commerce became, right? Adobe Commerce is an example of like a monetized open source platform, right? Where what they added to the open source kind of base was hosting and support services and security and services that they maintain that they were hoping would incentivize people to go with their implementation of the Magento open source platform. If that makes sense, please correct me or let me know if there's any part that's unclear. So essentially, you could do it yourself for free if you wanted. And if instead you wanted Adobe to handle all of that stuff so that you had time to do other things, you could subscribe to their whatever it was. I don't know what the monthly fee was. But I looked at that, or it wasn't Adobe at the time that I looked at, but I was looking at examples like that, and I was like, fuck, maybe this would be something that I can do. Maybe this would be an ethical way that I could finally monetize this work that I'm doing, because at this point, I had been working, and I mean, really, I don't know, no one made me do this, so ultimately the responsibility is mine, but I had been working for about 3 years, pretty much full time, on really just, I mean, it's like what many developers do, right? Where they are either you're burning some sort of runway that you have, whether it's from funding or from savings or whatever, or you have a job that's, like a part-time job, right? Where you spend half of your time on the part-time job to accrue money, and you spend the other half of your time doing development, right? To try and bring your game to life. So I had a bit of savings at that point, kind of like a nest egg. And I was like, fuck, all right, I'm gonna work on this and try and find a way to sustain it, like as I go, right? And so I thought that Automaton, because it was this open source software, GPL3, that you can do whatever you want with, that was gonna be my ticket, right? Like the thing that I planned to do was what I like to call a delay wall, where the tricky thing with mods and like monetization is that while I do think that modders are doing work and deserve to have the option to be compensated the way anybody else does, you also are the modding community as it exists now. Stuff has to be free in the modding community, right? Like you can't have mods that are just straight up paywalled, or like I guess you could, but it would be a very different scene than what we have today. And I personally think I would maybe need to do more research, but I think that would be a pretty bummer thing, right? Like if you had like Bethesda's thing that they tried to do with Steam, like way back in the day, where mods were just straight up paid, like you had to pay like $1 or something for whatever mod it was. Again, maybe it would have been cool, I don't know, but for something like a mod list, could you imagine if like every mod in this 500 mod list cost like $1 or something? That's like $500, and it's like not even guaranteed to work necessarily, which is crazy. So I just think it would not work. It absolutely would not work for our scene, and so much of what I think makes the Skyrim modding scene beautiful and amazing just would not work with paid mods, right? Yeah, so this is going to sound recent to Finn and the team because we were talking about this today. Because it's, I've just been reflecting. It's kind of like on my mind, just the whole process all the way start to finish. The Creation Club is interesting because clearly Bethesda recognized too that there's monetization opportunity in mods. This could be naive. I have no proof of this, but maybe someone at Bethesda was like, and also it would be cool if modders had some sort of means to get paid, right? And we eventually did kind of find one in donation points, which donation points to me also, as far as like compromises, I think are really, really solid. I was thrilled with donation points when they announced it, and I continue to be thrilled by it today. I think it's really, really cool. Bethesda made the Creation Club because they were like, okay, clearly that didn't work, but we're going to find some way to monetize this, right? So that's what Creation Club essentially is. And it's cool in some ways. In other ways, it's like, whatever. But I'm glad that people are getting paid for the work that they're doing. That's like the cool part. Anyway, I had this open source software that Methrol developed. I thought it was awesome. I thought, and this is naive looking back, right? But I thought, so what I came up with, what I thought would be like an ethical compromise, right? Because you can't have a paywalled mod. You can't, again, it just won't work. I thought we could do what I like to call, I didn't come up with this term, but it fits, what I like to call a delay wall, right? Which is essentially early access. This is what Steam would later call early access, where you, and actually I'd say a little bit less intense than early access, because what you do is, like, let's say you subscribe on Patreon or whatever, right? The plan was for you to get my, like, whatever the auto files that Automaton produced. And it was no mod files being sold, because I don't want to, like, all the mod files themselves are freely available. You can, the same way as like with the Magento open source example, you can, all of this stuff is available for free if you just put it together yourself the same way that you have always been able to, right? Alternatively, this auto installer auto file, what you could do is you could subscribe to get like early access to whatever like the early access build was, or you could just wait whatever the amount of time was. We'll say like 2 months or 3 months is arbitrary. Oh, sorry. Here, I'll put this over here. Put that over there, so you guys don't have to look at the super intense. Yeah, so, or you would get early access to it, and then when that, either the next one came out or after like whatever the hard cutoff certain amount of time was, that build would, like all the other ones, be made available for free, right? So I thought that was an ethical way to monetize the project, and I still do think that. However, when I suggested doing this, paywalling a beta build is exactly what I'm talking about here. Paywalling a beta build is just another way of saying delay walls, right? The beta is the part that you get early access into, and then when it comes out of beta, everyone gets access to it. And then the next part, whatever the new thing is, goes into beta, Then when it's solid, everyone gets access to it. And it's just this kind of structure, right? So I think that it maintains the part where the mod is free. It also incentivizes the developer to continue making stuff, because then they can, if there's, especially if there's a hard limit, you can't just like game the system by being like, ooh, the latest thing's, it's still in beta. Like, sorry, like if you're a slow developer or whatever, I can see how that might actually be the case. But I think it's too easily exploitable if you don't have maybe like a hard limit, right? And also if there is a hard limit on how long you can stay in like early access, I do think that incentivizes people to keep making stuff, right? Because then they can continue, to have the subscription. And yeah, I thought that this would be a cool way to hit all the notes. And let's just say that not everyone agreed with that. Yes, anything that involved paying in the modding scene becomes a controversial topic. So this is true. I think it's especially true in the Skyrim and in the Bethesda modding scene. And boy howdy, did I underestimate how much of a backlash there would be to this. Now there's a couple different reasons for that. One is just pure naivety. I thought that it was cool. I didn't understand. It's the same thing I do now. I mostly spend my time kind of like nose to the grindstone working on stuff. I knew about like drama of one kind or another, but like tangentially, right? I was never like super involved in it. So I just very naively did not anticipate the we'll say there's a very, especially at the time, there was a very loud group of, not a huge group, but a very loud group of people who had been in the scene for a very long time, who just by virtue of that still held a lot of kind of like clout and sway, at least like rhetorically or on the surface of things, because there were cracks underneath starting to form, or had been forming and started to widen, we'll say. But there was a vocal group of people who, this is where it was the perfect storm of controversy looking back, where they were not only on the whole opposed to monetization of any kind, but they also, well, actually, ironically, so Arthmore is one of the people who's in this next group I was going to say, but Arthmore, I do believe, and I could be wrong about this, was one of the people who actually didn't have a huge problem with the original paid modding thing, because I believe, he's someone who, whatever you think of Arthmore, he is someone who just factually has worked very hard in the scene and produced a lot of work. So it wouldn't surprise me terribly that if he was one of the people who was like, well, I don't think that the concept of paid mods or having someone earn a living or earn something is bad. I do believe he was like softer on that. But there's the second group, right, where these are people who are just opposed to, like, even ignore the monetization point. They are just completely opposed to mod packs at all in any form. This group did not want mod packs to exist. They wanted it to stay how it's been, where you download mods one by one. They at least said that they were dubious that, it's like, oh, if someone puts together a mod pack for you, it's going to be riddled with issues and it'll never be stable and it'll never, like, all these kinds of things, which to me are just, it's just not true. And if anything, you can make mod packs that are more stable because people are working on the same basis of like all these different mods, right? So yeah, this group was very staunchly opposed to mod packs, and so the fact that I was trying to monetize, this open source thing, which again, it's completely allowed by the license, but that wasn't so much, I think, the concern. It was more like this is probably about the hottest take that you'll ever hear me express on like a lot of this stuff, but a lot of the people in this particular group, I've been around long enough to hear them describe, I don't even know how many things as like what's going to guarantee the end of modding. It's going to destroy the modding community. Before it was mod packs, it was like, it's been so many different things throughout like the years that I've been around. And nothing has destroyed it thus far, that's for sure. I would argue it's in a healthier place than it's ever been. I would argue that in the past 5 years, we've seen some of the craziest shit come out. It's just mind-blowing. suffice to say, mod packs were another thing that this got labeled, right? It was, oh, mod packs are going to destroy modding. It's going to create all these problems and whatever. I just didn't think it was the case. And whatever, as to why this is what people said, there's varying reasons. It's speculation at best, so I'm not going to speculate on it. What the heck? Thank you, Melro, for 4 months. Oh, gotcha. Well, I want to see what he said. Oh. Well, either way. Yeah, so... Oh, okay, this is one thing I can talk about, is, like... I think there was this attitude among a lot of the detractors, will say, that the users of the mod packs... It was like the mod packs were stealing users, right? Because instead of the users going to like the individual mod pages and downloading from there, they would download the mod pack instead. And so that was like a user that should have been downloading from the individual mod page that the mod packs had stolen. I'm hoping that the hole in that logic maybe is appearing for some of you right now, but if it's not, it's because it does take some thinking about, to be honest. The concession that I'll give is that it would be a huge adjustment getting used to players who aren't necessarily going straight to your mod page. So that's different, and that's a real thing to like have to figure out how to handle, right? The part, I would say the biggest hole in the logic is that there are so many users who would have, these are not users who would have been on those pages downloading everything individually. These are the users, many of these users are people who bounced off of something like the original Ultimate Skyrim install precisely because they were not interested in going to every mod page and individually clicking the right file and making sure that it all works together manually. These are people who did not want to do that, who are now becoming users because there is a way not to do that. That, I think, is the biggest hole in the logic, and it's also why you see so many of these files, once mod packs came about, and it was easy to do, some of these files, even popular files by like regular scene standards, were getting like exponentially more downloads because you are bringing more people into the scene, fresh blood, people who are not there already, people who are not modders already, who are not doing this stuff. So that's like the big kind of difference there, right? So yeah, that it just, to me, the reasons didn't really hold up, and it was like, okay, like I think the mod packs are here to stay. But getting back to the original point, it was basically the perfect storm of PR nightmare that I created in this moment. Yeah, I had the open source component. I had the in terms of licensing and rights, we're in the clear. The people who did not like either one of those components, mod packs or any form of monetization at all in any way, shape, or form, were like, fuck this thing, right? And so there was a lot of backlash initially. There were also, sometimes I go back and read those old threads and I see people who were, I'm not going to name names, but people who were like people I knew in the community, big names that I respected, being like, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with this. Or like, you know, I wouldn't necessarily do this myself, but I don't think that that means I can stop this person from doing that if they have the rights to do it and blah, blah, blah. And I see that and I'm like, okay, so I wasn't crazy. It's not as if, you know, the entire world was against me here. But it was a big, it was tough. It was, so going back to that whole part of, you know, the perfectionism. And I mean, again, and anybody, I think, who's made anything at all. Yo, thank you for the bit, solid. Oh, and thank you for the prime sub, Corridora. I think nobody likes criticism, especially if it's framed in a not so nice way. Which is not, there was plenty of criticism that was perfectly polite, right? Like it wasn't insulting or whatever. Obviously, you always have like insulting type stuff, but whatever. That's just kind of how it goes. Still, at least for me, that kind of backlash was like devastating. It was absolutely devastating because I had been working my ass off on this thing. And I don't mean to say this as if like, you know, pity me for this, because again, I think that if I had paid closer attention, I could have anticipated this. So, and I'm the one who chose to do it, so it is what it is. But for me, it was like, oh, what's up, Solid? Um, it was really tough. Because I didn't think it was coming. I was surprised, which is hilarious in retrospect, and it just felt like I was like, fuck, does like everyone like fucking hate me now, right? Like in this scene. Um, and it stunk for sure, but I was like, okay, well, like I can see how not everyone's like for this, right? But I think it's the right thing to do. I think that this concept of like the delay wall or whatever, plus the mod pack, I think it's the right thing to do. So maybe I'll just do that kind of in my own space, and people who think it's cool, and then here's actually the crazy bit. So something I should mention in all this that I think made it real to me is that there wasn't even actually a point where I ended up getting to institute this like delay wall structure that I was planning. I just said I was going to. I said this is what, because like the first version was out for free, right? And then it was going to be the next ones that would do this. That was what, because Metherol, my developer friend, he had more foresight than me. He was like, I think that there's going to be people who are kind of upset about that. So the compromise that we agreed to was like, make the first version will be one of the free ones, and then you can start doing whatever. Anyway, so I announced that I was going to be doing this thing, and my Patreon, it over doubled. I saw a massive spike from people who, again, weren't even getting anything yet, but who were like, yeah, I would do that. If you can give me your open source thing and I get the early access, I would absolutely do that. It was like $5 a month that bought you into it. And I went from like, I hope it's not uncouth to share numbers. I think it should be, this is a side thing. I think it shouldn't be uncouth for people to share their like income and stuff, because frankly, I kind of, at least off the cuff, not having investigated it that much, I hear a lot these days about how it's almost like propagandistic, how businesses will kind of discourage employees from sharing your salaries and stuff. I feel like that really only benefits like the companies and the businesses, because if all of us kind of realize that we're being like underpaid or whatever, that definitely benefits us and not them. But anyway, I went from like, at the time, I think I had like $1,100 a month on Patreon, which I was already thrilled about, but which again was not like, if you calculated that out to like my full-time salary, it was like a couple dollars an hour, like if that. I think at one point it was like 1.5. So it's just not, I was just draining my savings, right? And that's why I wanted so badly to do this, and doubly why it was so devastating that it was like, oh man, this doesn't seem like it's gonna work out. Because I'm like, okay, well, and I told my then girlfriend, now wife, she's putting all this trust in me too, to be like, well, because she doesn't know what is going on. She's just, letting me handle it. And I was like, yeah, come 2019 or April, like that, then I'll have finally something that is ours, that I have full rights to do this monetization element and whatever. And again, needless to say, it didn't work out that way. But anyway, so like the gain in income was real. It was, you could see how people were willing to. It's really kind how many of you donate, and God, I appreciate it so much. It is like absolutely a part of my needed income month to month. But I think it's not surprising to anybody that we are more willing to contribute our hard-earned money to something when we get something in return for it. I think that's just basic economics. And there were people who I think agreed. And so I saw it went up to like, I think it peaked at somewhere like 2,400. And I was like, holy shit. But it just wasn't to be, right? Where what happened was that so I didn't build this installer, right, myself. I didn't have the coding skills to do that. It was the open source product of the installer that I was going to be incorporating. Our boy Meth he's at the time, I mean, I'm pretty sure he might have just graduated, but he was a student at the time. He barely had time to work on this stuff. It came to the point where he did not have time to maintain the installer. And at the same time, I didn't have the skills to maintain it. And also at the same time, this is right around when Wabbajack took off, right? So Wabbajack was originally, I do believe I remember like way back in the day, Halgari, around the same time that Methrol was working on Automaton, just independently. I don't think he'd even heard of Automaton, but he was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could download these mod packs? And he started like whipping up a tool to do it. Eventually him and Methrol found each other, and they were both contributing to Automaton together. And then when Meth had to step back, Halgari decided to make a completely separate tool that accomplished the same goal, but through, you know, more specialized means. Halgari is a very talented coder. And hopefully I'm not mischaracterizing Halgari's stance on this, and if I am, I feel like this is the more conservative version anyway, but I'm pretty sure that Halgari would agree with me that his belief on monetization is more of the I don't want it really in any way, shape, or form. And that was one of the kind of differences of Wabbajack versus Automaton, right? And so Wabbajack had a different license. It specifically disallowed this kind of thing. And as a mod pack creator, who I don't have the auto tool that I was going to use anymore, Wabbajack is now the existing installer tool that, and also Wabbajack is, I mean, I don't need to tell you guys, it's an amazing tool that can do some really incredible stuff and has been a massive boon just to mod packs. The technical breadth of stuff that we can achieve is nuts. But what I was trying to do, if I was going to go and use Wabbajack instead, it just was not going to be possible, right? So when I moved over to Wabbajack, it was kind of like, okay, well, on the one hand, this does allow me to do some really cool stuff from a technical standpoint, and on the other hand, it's like, all right, this open source monetization model that I had planned on, that I was kind of counting on to, you know, to help me start making, because at this point too, I'm like 2019, I'm 30, I just turned 31. So in 2019, I would have been 28, 27, right? Somewhere in that ballpark, 27, 28. So I'm approaching 30, and I'm trying to do this full-time thing. I'm spending a full-time job effort, you know, like 40 to 50 hours a week on something that's functionally earning me like $2 an hour. And I was like, fuck me, like, something like this doesn't, like, you just can't do that, right? So it was what it was. And since then, I have really tried to, I've sought for different ways that I might be able to monetize the project, but mostly I've just had to shift my priorities around, right? Because you can't, if that's what their license says, then that's what the license says. And this is kind of like something else we talk about, where it's like, if you agree to use the software, you agree to use the license, and you cannot, that's where I feel like ethically, like, you may not agree with what the license stipulates, but if you're using the service, then you should respect the license. I think that's just how it goes. But yeah, so from that point onward, it was like, I knew that I still wanted to work on Wildlander. I knew it was or what was then Ultimate Skyrim SE, right? I knew it was my passion, but I knew that something had to give. And so fast forward, you know, there was a year and a half of work when I was like, okay, I'm going to rebuild, because it was then time to move to Special Edition, right? Because Requiem had finally moved to Special Edition. That was what we were waiting for. And I was really stoked to like take everything that I learned from Ultimate Skyrim and reimagine it, rebuild it on Special Edition, right? And create what is today Wildlander, which I think is just, I mean, there are areas in which Wildlander still lacks content compared to Ultimate Skyrim. Ultimate Skyrim had several years to gestate. I'll be talking about that in a little bit. I can't believe it's 125, and I'm still only kind of like 75% of the way through this story. But I was really excited to put it together because I believe in the project. I think it's awesome. I've had such a great time, blah, 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 blah. But so for this next few years, like after that, while I was building what would ultimately become Wildlander, to be honest with you guys, this was like the hardest time for me because I was already kind of running on fumes financially. I was still trying to put a full-time's worth of effort into it. And just thinking maybe I can find it along the way, right? Like the way that I'm able to monetize, but it was really tough. It's just, I think for anybody and again, no one forced me to do this, so it is what it is. It's a lesson that I apparently had to learn for myself and make myself learn. But it's when you work very very hard and you make very little money, it fucks with you. It fucks with you hard. This is like the part that I don't talk about tremendously because I don't want to seem ungrateful, because I really am grateful for, like, there's so many opportunities this has afforded me, even like work. So through Wabbajack and the community there, right, getting to work with all the other lists, because after a while I was pretty, what's the word, the PR disaster, frankly, there's really no other word for it. It really shook me. It created this scenario where, like, I was afraid to kind of peek my head out into the community, because, like, it's one of those things where, like, people might know you already and, like, you don't know what they think of you. There were still some people who were like, I'm not going to name names here either, but there was a couple people who were just, like, going around saying the meanest shit that was, like, lies, like, actually not true. And it was like, fuck, like, does everyone in this community, like, hate me? And you just, you know that that's not true, but it's another, you know, I think it's easy to think that it might be, or to worry. So I didn't poke my head out for a long time. And as I kind of started to, I learned that certainly not everyone felt that way. And two, just becoming more a part of the community again, there really is no substitute for having peers and rivals and friends to learn from and to grow with. There is a ceiling on how much you can grow your skills, your understanding, your anything. There's a ceiling when it's just you and that's it. If you don't have people to bounce your ideas off of, if you don't have people to teach you the stuff that they've learned and the skills that they've honed, if you don't have people to share your versions of those with, to make them able to do whatever it is they're trying to do even better, so that the two of you can, right? It's like, it's, you know, it's, think of like a boxing match, right? Hopefully a friendly boxing match, but where it's like you and your, or fucking think of any like shonen anime, basically. Isn't this like the constant trope? I have a My Hero Academia coffee here that my wife got me. You like it? Guys like this. You can't get better, or there's only so much better you can get if it's just you. And so getting to kind of rejoin the community and also learn that, like, there were people, modders who I respected, who I didn't even know if they knew who I was, and I saw them defending me in places, and it really kind of brought me back down to reality and kind of takes you out of that anxiety pit and that thinking of, like, everybody hates me, everyone thinks I'm an asshole, whatever, right? Because it's, I mean, anyone with anxiety will tell you that, like, anxious people will spiral with that stuff, and I think it's understandable, but it's also like, well, I'm never gonna be able to, if I let it take, well, whatever, I'm not gonna lecture anyone on anxiety. That's a different conversation. But it was really nice to see, as I started to poke my head out, that it wasn't quite as I'd feared, and it was still hard with the money component, but that helped, right? And so the building blocks started to kind of, this is where now this is our act 3, if you want to call it. So let's just do this. So let's fast forward to when Wildlander released. I was really stoked. The demands became gnarlier again, right? Because now we had it was a live project. I really think Wildlander, I was very proud that Wildlander 1.0, and here we can talk about, like, the improvements of our testing process and the wonderful work done by our support team and my team in getting everything set up. We got Lizzie, 3D, Finn, Matt, fucking Ring. We have other team members who are not around, or like kind of pop in and out. There's a million people I could mention in a team. If I'm forgetting anyone, please, slap me later. This was like this group effort. It was like Wildlander's release was such a stark contrast to Ultimate Skyrim. Oh yes, Aosana, of course, Daryl, thank you. it was such a stark contrast to some of the shit that we had pulled in Ultimate Skyrim, where just it was like, keep in mind, it's like I don't even the truth is that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I mean? Or like I didn't go to school for game dev. I have never been an organized person. I didn't even know that I really had ADHD until, you know, my late 30s. I'm your extremely stereotypical example of someone who's kind of coasted on, you know, just getting by, not trying super hard. That's how I was in, you know, in college and in school before that. I never built like project management. So I would say, was I late? Sorry, late 20s, late 20s. Oh my God, late 30s. Jesus. I'm sorry. I'm 31 now. The, oh gosh. The skills that I would argue that like software development and game development is a very complex task, like even among complex tasks, right? But just complex tasks in general, I was not well suited to. I never had any sort of organization. When I was doing Ultimate Skyrim, again, I never even planned to be doing this, so I certainly wasn't building the skills that someone would need. And I never even anticipated needing so many of these skills. Trying to like manage a team of any kind, volunteer or otherwise, it's not something I'd ever done before. The closest I like managed some stuff when I was in undergrad. I like had leadership positions with the various like school organizations that I did, but you're still babies. Like at that point, you're still children, right? And like the adults are still kind of supervising you, my advisors and whatever. Like, you know, at least for me, like you could have learned a lot more organization skills, but I didn't. And so that, I think, was reflected in each step of the project. And when Wildlander 4 or 1.0, excuse me, came out, it was a hugely intense release. We broke Wabbajack, and also huge shout outs to the Wabbajack staff there, Halgari and Lively and Luca and everybody, Ari, everyone who was. I still remember on launch day, we broke the servers. I can't remember how or why. I was on, you can go back and watch the stream where I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like on stream, on Discord being like, oh, like, what do I do? And they were like, don't even worry about it. Have your launch day. Like, you're good, bro. We'll handle everything. Right. Like, and then they went and fixed it for me, which I will be forever indebted to them for that. That was a good day. But yeah, so we had a lot of people coming and playing, right? But I just felt like it was night and day. It was all of the things that we had been trying to improve. Our support, our testing, our organization, and our processes. We've been slowly but surely improving those things over the course of Wildlander's development. And it was like all at once, we got to see the fruits of that labor, right? Like, it was just so much better than any release that we had done previously. And it was the 1.0 version. It's like the one that's supposed to be fucked, if like any of them are going to be fucked. And that version, now 1.0 had issues. It most certainly did. But that ended up being, we did not release the big 1.1 until like what? Lizzie, 6 months on? It was like halfway through the year. The idea that we could release something, June, so 6 months in. The idea that we could release something that was stable enough to last for 6 months that people liked. I mean, of course, again, there's stuff that was in Ultimate Skyrim that wasn't yet in Wildlander. There's also a lot of stuff that was in Wildlander that wasn't in Ultimate Skyrim. A lot of things related to quality of life and to making it accessible and easy to play and understand. You guys play it, for some of you, so you probably know, or hopefully know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was like this really stark difference, and I was and am very happy about that and really proud of it. And it has been my God, has it been a group effort. Like, the launcher, like, just everyone on the team has just, and it's not just the team, it's everyone at the Wabbajack Discord, it's everyone in the Skyrim mods Discord, where I am all the time asking questions and also hopefully trying to answer questions. Just that part where like and even beyond that, there's so many people who have helped, and that's to say nothing of everybody who's played the project, who's supported it, whether monetarily or by making content or just by telling their friends about it. Like, there are so many different people who have contributed to what this project is, and it's like I'm gonna use a this is a spoiler for something, but I'm gonna turn it into not a spoiler. It's like, just imagine that everybody's kind of will and effort sort of, how could it not intertwine, right? It's like, this is what I think people mean when they say kind of like the energy of the universe, so to speak. It's not really like in a woo sense, just in like a pragmatic sense. Like the efforts and focus of so many different people towards a collective kind of thing, goal, how could it not produce something that is just that much better because of everybody's like effort, right? Yeah, well, there you go. It's a spirit bomb. That's a better one. That's a better non-spoiler because everyone knows what a spirit bomb is. So yeah, and that brings us. So this past year has been wild. And that brings us to today, where, and the future, we'll say. So over the past, especially over the past 6 months, we'll say, this is when it finally became clear to me that, like, okay, I don't know if I will ever... Yo, thank you for 14 months, Nomad. I don't know if I'll ever be able to kind of achieve those monetization goals. I still believe in the concept of like a delay wall of an early access program, right? Just as far as I can tell, it's like the only sort of early access anything we'd be able to do. I would have to make my own installer, which is not something that's outside of the wheelhouse. It's something that does appeal to me, not just for that, but also like we made the launcher, the custom launcher, right, where we can really have users like what's it called, like have the exact experience that we want them to have. There's also the component now. I have no idea what's going to happen to the future of like Wabajack, right? But obviously Halgari works for the Nexus now, and maybe Halgari will make like a similar tool for the Nexus. I don't know, but I don't want to. I know how much work it is to have a full-time job and to be on the hook for something like that in the meantime. So it's like the same thing with like the Requiem devs, right? Like Requiem development, I remember it was like, it got pretty slow for a while because the lead dev, despite having the passion for it, didn't have the time, because it's a free hobby project, and as long as it's that, like you can't count on it. So if I were to do something like that, I would have to like make my own installer. Who knows? But either way, I was like, yeah, maybe we can do that in the future, but here's the thing, I need to make money now. I need to be able to support my family. I need to be able to meet our financial goals, right? Because now I'm not even 28 anymore. Now I'm 30 years old, and 30 is just a number, but we have stuff we want to do. We want to buy a house. I live in LA. If I'm trying to buy a house here, it's also like, woo boy, like that is, I don't need to explain the housing markets in places, around here, but it's expensive. And even just if I weren't, I would need to be making more money. And so what I finally decided to do was to dig in to ramp up freelance, right? Especially in the second half of this year. That was a big focus of mine. Y'all might have seen me kind of talk about it here and there. And what that has so it's been a big kind of transition period. Even if Wildlander wasn't in the picture, it would have been a big transition for me, right? Because I'm going from doing one thing to doing a very different sort of thing, or at least something that I've not done to this extent ever, even if it kind of borrows from some skills that I have already. So I've been really focusing on kind of getting that on board. I've been lucky enough to have clients. I got a lot of clients like through my wife too, because she has this incredibly robust network that she has built, where it turns out a bunch of her clients needed stuff that I could do. So I was like, hell yeah, like throw them to me. I've managed to get my own clients for several of the things that I do now. My wife too, she's in transitory period because she transitioned from working, for various companies to doing her own business, full-time freelance. So it's been this massive transitory period, and all the while, I'm trying to figure out where the fuck do I fit Wildlander into this, right? Because it's clearly my passion. It's the thing that I love to do. The reason that I still love to do it is that I just think it's the same reason why I started it to begin with, which is that I think it's already in some ways an experience that you kind of can't get anywhere else. And every time I read all the feedback, I'm grateful for all of it. Sometimes even especially the stuff that's like, well, this is what I feel like it's missing. My favorite, okay, feedback, really, you need feedback. People who are not being nice when they leave their feedback, I wish people would be nice, or at least not mean, but I will try to take what's useful from it. My favorite kind of feedback is that even if people, have like something that they want to offer, that, well, whatever, you guys get it. I'm reading everyone's experiences. People are saying they enjoy it. That just warms my heart. And here I am thinking, oh my God, there's so many different things that I want to do still, and so much potential that I feel like it's not even tapped yet. Where do I do this? Like, how do I do this? How do I, again, our organization had gotten a lot better, but still it wasn't, there was this missing piece. And that's kind of, here's like the ultimate end, or the end of the beginning, and not the beginning of the end, but, or the beginning of the end of how do I even put this? Fuck. The end of the beginning and the beginning of a new chapter. I don't know, whatever weird metaphor you want to apply. This is like my focus going forward, right? So one of the things I learned over the course of trying to manage all these different things at the same time, and I remember my therapist telling me this like years ago, where she was like, honestly, you might want to try and do some of this freelance stuff, because you realize very quickly, because my therapist also has her own, she does therapy, but she also has her own business in addition to that, which was really, what a great, like, lucky thing, because that's been so helpful for me, getting to hear about her experiences. That she was like, when she first started doing all of her stuff, she just found out so quickly that like the pragmatic necessity of organization was real, right? When you have less time, you really need to make the most of the time that you have. And a big part of that is organization. In many ways, it's kind of like how, limitations can actually inspire creativity versus limit it. The inverse, I think, is also true. When you have, like, even if you look at Wildlander's development, we'll say that first, like, 1.5 years, I think at the rate and the way that I work now, I think I could have done that in, like, I don't know, a year, maybe even less. Just because the fact that you're spending all of your time on something does not necessarily mean that you're doing it efficiently, right? The big missing piece, I think, has been really concrete timelines and goals and deadlines for Wildlander, right? In the past, I have really, and I don't mean, let me be clear here, I don't mean that I'm going to be, walking around giving you guys release dates. This is something I had to, when I was talking with the team about kind of the new organization that I've been working on, Lizzie's first thing. Yeah, I know I do. But I'm trying not to do that so much when I'm working. And maybe I can try and do it. Well, this is what I wanted to ask you guys about too, was the stream. And so I'm eventually getting to there. One thing at a time, I suppose. But I had to tell Lizzie, like, no, I'm not just going to be handing out, release dates for everybody. But I think historically, I have been really hesitant to put specific kind of like deadlines and goals on the Wildlander project or on the modding projects. There's a real part where it is tough to do that when you have a volunteer team, and when you can't always, like, this is not our jobs, right? Like, in a sense, it's not what earns us money. So I can't speak for the team's time. I can't like assign them something and say, have it done by here. That's never how we work, because it's a volunteer team. People do stuff when they can. And sometimes someone will come up with their own deadline, or we'll talk about one and have like a rough agreement to try and hit it. But it's not the same as like a paid position where someone's obligated. So that's real. That kind of can't be. But that doesn't need to be in order for me to have deadlines and plans and, putting stuff where it can be, where it'll get done. And I think that what it really took for me, and this is the other kind of like, I mean, I guess technically it's personal, and maybe this will resonate with any of you if you kind of work similarly or feel like you struggle with similar like organization things. I think for someone like me who is so perfectionism prone and who is so terrified of judgment or of, releasing something that's not good enough or not being good enough or whatever, deadlines are a, and goals, they're a form of looking at reality. And I think that perfectionism and all those kinds of things are a method of avoiding reality. If I don't look at the real time it takes me to do certain things, and if I don't set specific goals and then kind of break them down in reverse to figure out how long it's going to actually take, it's like I get to live in this pseudo reality where it could take as little or as much time as I want, or we don't have to worry about it, or like all these other things where it's really just avoiding this reality where like, fuck, there's so much that I want to do. And it's like Schrodinger's deadline, where like the second I actually sit down and break it down and put it on paper, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna despair about how long it actually takes versus how long I wish it took in my brain, right? But the irony, and I'm sure many of you listening to this are ahead of me on this already, but this is something that, there's so many things I feel like that we just apparently need to learn on our own after bashing our head against the wall, trying to do it a million other ways. I think we all have our own versions of that, but the irony is that if you put something down on paper, however long it is that it's going to take, it's still probably shorter than how long it would have taken if you just kind of leave it amorphously up in your head, right? Because having it down on paper, having like a reasonable plan is the best way that I know as of now to make sure something actually gets done. This is what I was applying like in my freelance, because with the freelance, it's like, okay, these are my paid clients. I can't miss these deadlines. So I kind of had to do it. And I was like, holy fuck, not only is it way more useful for getting things done in a reasonable time frame, but also I don't feel as fucking stressed all the time. I'm not constantly wondering where I stand on my timeline or whether I'm taking too long this or like whatever. You can't feel like you're ahead of something, like you're ahead of schedule, if there is no schedule. You just always feel like you're behind, no matter what. Nothing is ever fast enough. Nothing is ever getting done as quickly as you hoped. You're just in a perpetual state of feeling like you're fucking up, and it really takes a toll on your mental state. And I don't know. It's just been, since I've been trying to work on this stuff, where like now I have like a whole system like for my organization. I'm still like tweaking it, and it's the system I have now is based on the systems that I've kind of iteratively tweaked. But I've been, how it's like one of those things where when you really put your energy and your focus into doing something, when you really accept like, okay, this needs to be done. Also, that is a really good point. Suicidal Killer says that you also never know exactly when you failed. I forgot to say that part. Thank you for reminding me. This is the other big component for like the self-esteem part. You don't want to you don't want to have a deadline or a goal, because now you have a fail state. Now you have something that definitively says, if I don't hit this, then I failed, right? Which is technically true, but one, you would have failed it anyway by the same criteria if it took longer, you just didn't put it down on paper. And two, failure is not bad. Like, failure is a kind of tough word connotatively, but failure in like a non-connotative, just like pragmatic definition of the word, like failure is just iteration. I mean, again, this is like the most obvious like idiom of all time, but it's like, you need to fail over and over again, or just try. You need to have the opportunities to iterate, or else how are you going to improve? Or you might improve, but you're not going to do it as fast or perhaps as fully or whatever. You need to have fail states in addition to success states. And like if you fail it, let's say it takes you longer than it should have, or if you succeed at it, either way, you can take it, reflect on it, figure out what worked, what didn't, and then apply that to the next whatever. You can't really do any of that stuff if you're just refusing to plan anything, if you're just fucking Wallace and Gromit putting the train tracks down in front of the train, never looking up. It's wild. So anyway, yeah, that brings us to, or it's kind of the end point of this idea where 2023, I'm hoping, and I'm really trying to be reasonable because that's another part of setting goals. They have to be reasonable and attainable. But the system that I've got going now, I was working on it for quite a long time towards the end of last year, kind of amidst my freelance, using that as like an opportunity to hone it. It seems to be working well enough, and I'm gonna really continue to try my best, and I'm gonna try and be kind to myself for the parts that I overestimate or whatever it is, underestimate. Overestimate my abilities, underestimate the amount of time, whatever you want to call it. My goal for 2023 is to have goals, is to really I think this is the at least from where I'm sitting, the final missing piece in terms of making this or any project into a real project, right? Which is not to say that like in each of these categories, I still have plenty of improving. There's still plenty of things that we can hone and enhance and whatever from the project management and, you know, like testing and whatever. But at least now all the pieces should be in place, right? Yo, thank you for the tier 1 sub. Anonymous user gifted. My gosh, thank you. And I'm really excited for that because to me that means that, you know, we can quicken the pace of development, or I shouldn't say quicken, I can make it transparent and I can make it real. I can't promise you what I won't be able to do because I'm still, you know, I'm working on it. But like we had, what did I say? Yeah, there you go, Liam. So maybe I'm also, wait, this is the fucking jam. This is like the best song from Hades. We're gonna, well, I'll let it go and then remind me when it ends. Yeah, and so I've been working on it for a little bit. Well, let's just say New Year, so that's fair. I don't know. It's been really cool, and how do I put it? I just feel like, so like I've been talking about the roadmap, and we've been working on the Trello board, right? The whole, like, everything to me has been kind of building towards this ability to change like iteratively. I was excited to show this to you guys actually. So we had how many? Oh, I don't even know how many are on here total. I'm gonna do this off screen so you guys can't quite see. So I'm gonna see how many cards we have. Let me do a little calculator. Please continue to enjoy this beautiful background. Do I have plans to make Patreon more valuable? Now, this is something else I was planning to ask you guys in addition to like the stream. So the real answer is sort of. There's things I feel like I want to do that are like merch, right? And then like Patreon can kind of be incorporated there. It's not really like Patreon. There's like, I kind of wanted to ask if anyone has like ideas. I'm also, frankly, to be honest, I'm a little bit concerned that even something like merch for Wildlander might run afoul of like some of Wabbajack's like anti-monetization policies, and I'm not really trying to create like friction there if I can avoid it. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna have to continue thinking about it. But if you guys have any ideas, in fact, yeah, if anyone has any ideas for Patreon things that you either feel would be a good incentive for someone else, or things that you would like and would be interested in patronizing for, I'd love to hear it. If you can come up with those while I do this calculation. God, this song really is such a jam. That's me calculating on the other screen. Actually, it's not. I just need to do that for a specific thing that I'm doing here. Okay. Okay. Got it. Mod lottery. Well, in that sense, to be honest, I'm afraid that might also run afoul Yep. So this is kind of what we've been trying to figure out. Where it's like I think that's a cool idea for sure. I think that's a great concept. But okay, so of the okay, hold on a second. All right. Okay, so check this out. So y'all know how we have the Trello board, right? Merch would use your own logo. So no, GP, I'm not as sure. I really am not. I mean, we can talk about it like off stream, but I'm really not sure. Just because of how, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it. But anyway, okay. So I think this is cool. So now here, let's also thank you guys for listening to me. I've been talking for 2 hours about this crazy long story with all the different tangents. I hope it kind of contextualizes what's been going on, and I really appreciate you kind of listening and just supporting the project, and you know the drill. Like, I really do. Now's the fun part. Now we get to talk about kind of what functionally I'll be doing in this next year, me and the team, and what's different, and kind of what the plans are, right? Patrons could get their own Trello. So, oh, that's a cool idea. I like that one a lot. It's like priority suggestion, which is similar-ish. I'm still concerned about that. So this has been the problem we've run into with Patreon, is that there's a lot of things that might run afoul of some of those policies. But I can always ask. So the idea, hit me with the ideas. I think they're great, and I can always ask about them. And, you know, worst comes to worst, like, we'll figure out something. I don't know. Never hurts to have the ideas. I do like these a lot. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so y'all know we've been working on the roadmap and the Trello. What we wanted to do for the 1 year anniversary of Wildlander is to, by the end of the month, ideally. Lizzie, will you kill me if I say that? Is that an okay thing to say? Because this one I do feel like we talked about announcing. That's okay? All right, cool. It's like, yes, that's okay, or yes, you'll kill me. Which of the two? I think that's a yes, it's okay. So by the end of the month, all right, cool. We are planning to open up the wiki, which, God, y'all, like, the team has been just, it's nuts, like, how much work they've been doing with this. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. As part of the wiki, I will be putting together the customization resources, right? And the, what I'm tentatively calling the, like, road to inclusion. So if you are kind of working on patching one of the mods that is existent on the board, or even if it's not, I mean, if you have a mod that's not on the board, I do think I would encourage you to suggest it so we can get it logged. This is going to show people kind of generally what to do for each type of mod, right? Like to patch it for Wildlander, whether or not it gets included. We are going to be opening up the official, unofficial customization channels, right? And the whole thing about customizing the build is that, of course, it voids your support warranty if such a thing exists, because we can't guarantee that issues that are, you know, caused by your mods are not issues, or sorry, we can't guarantee the issues are caused by the mods versus the vanilla experience. But in the unofficial channels, ideally also there's people there who are also customizing. We're going to be in there sometimes too, right? So like if you're like, oh shit, this is happening, and you're saying it in the customization channel, right? And then one of us has an idea of what's going on and we feel like responding, we can still do that. So that's all going to be, there's the moratorium on this has been lifted, which is, or will have been lifted, which I think is going to be a big oomph. It's going to be pretty cool for the people who care about that kind of thing. It's also a development thing, right? Where the more hands we have on, the faster a lot of this stuff can go. There's a lot of tasks, a lot of mods that are on the approval list or that are likely to make it there that aren't particularly difficult to integrate. They're just time consuming. And so if we get people, even people like testing some of the mods that we either have in the approved category or the needs further assessment category, that's also super helpful. So I'm really excited for that to kind of speed it up. I think that this new kind of organizational pipeline is going to help with the development and also the roadmap, right? So the roadmap is something you guys might have seen me working on in the background. I'm really excited about it. I am getting the mod suggestions board sorted first because it's basically like the progenitor or the basis of the roadmap stuff. But the way the roadmap is going to work is it's going to show what is currently coming in the next version and kind of the details that you can look forward to. It's part roadmap and part development manifesto, right? Where you'll see the other things that we plan to do, just organized in these really easy to read, really easy to navigate, little fucking chunks, modules. I don't know what you want to. Some of you who were in the last stream, might have seen the little drop downs that I was like messing with, that I've continued to mess with, and they're super cool. And it just gives me a really easy way to show all of it, just to further, like, if all of us are trying to give our spirit bomb energy, right, our energy to the spirit bomb, it's like showing everyone where the spirit bomb is, right, and like where to. This is a weird analogy. I'm not super well versed in DBZ, so apologies if that was just like, if a purist is going to hear me say that and go, oh my god, he has no fucking clue what he's talking about. But let's just assume it works. It's tough. It's almost like the microcosmically the same thing as the organization, where like if we don't know where to put our energy, it's harder to kind of like hone. It's less effective. But I feel like having the roadmap that says vampirism expansion, here's how it is now, here's how we want it to be, and here's how we're going to get there, right? Just having these tangible steps, the goal is clear, the steps on how to get there are clear, and like ipso facto, there's no way it can't go faster, right? Or it can't be more organized or more transparent at the very least. You guys can offer your ideas on like, so many times I'll be like, yeah, I'm thinking we should do it like this. And then someone will come in and be like, have you heard of this mod? Or like, have you considered maybe doing it like that? And I'll be like, oh my god, that's a great idea. It's one of the best. You guys remember in Hjolfred, anyone who watched season 1 of Ultimate Skyrim, it was so fucking cool being able to have the viewers essentially like on a week-to-week basis watch the thing, offer their comments and their thoughts about like what would be fun or what would be cool or what would make sense, and I could tweak that and or like act on it in the next video, right? It was like this immediate feedback loop, and it was just awesome. And so I don't know, I thought it was really, really sick. And what I'm trying to do, and I know that, you know, the software developers out there who are like, shorter turnaround time, iterative design, test, and publish loop, like what a novel concept. But it's just like getting there, of course. So this is what we're trying to do with the roadmap and the Trello board and everything. It's just to show you guys, it's just to create that same feedback loop. And with the customization, right, where you guys not only can participate in like the feedback part, but also in the like testing and then the, you know, then iterative feedback part. So I think it's going to be really cool, and I'm looking forward to it. So you look forward to it as well. If you want, don't let me tell you what to do. But so the board, right? Y'all see me get at the board all the time. So here's the Trello board. I got a few user suggestions here, but I just did the math. So I have, as of now, there are 1,230 of these cards that are evaluated and categorized and like ready to be utilized, right? There is a remaining, if you count the use, because I've been going through my suggestions, if you count both of these together, there is 100 and, God, I'm so bad at basic arithmetic. I'm going to have to do it, or I just don't want to get it wrong. Say, there are 146 cards to go. So between this one and this one, 146 cards, 146 mods to evaluate. I'm pretty fucking proud of that. I'm really stoked about it, and I'm really stoked about. I really encourage any of you guys to go onto the Trello board. You can find the link by going on the roadmap page on the website. Currently, there's a link to it. It'll be a lot more integrated and kind of easy to find once the roadmap page, proper is live. But you can find it there, and I really encourage you guys to just go through, even just for fun, even if you're not like suggesting anything, just to go through and check out some of the amazing suggestions that have been made here, some of the thoughts that we have on it. Some of the team has contributed their own thoughts in many instances as well. You can see the label, like I'm gonna have a whole kind of system for how to like navigate the labels and stuff, right? I can show you. Actually, maybe should we do it as a filter? Go here. Nah, it's actually better doing it this way. So if you go to the labels, I've got like a whole system for like how different things work. And again, I'm going to explain all of it like on the roadmap page. Some of these are depreciated, so I need to remove them still. So any of the category ones or anything that has a DEP, depreciated, deprecated, whatever it is. But there's a ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff on here that is really cool. And I think it's going to be fun from a user perspective to go through, look at the stuff that we categorized, whether it's needs further assessment, approved, or even the ones that are like questionable or declined. You can see exactly why we chose to do what we did, what my thoughts on it were, what I plan to do with it if it's not integrated or whatever. And I think it's the closest thing that we have to like that kind of development manifesto that I think will be present once the roadmap is completed. Because the roadmap modules will essentially be, it's not going to be like a one-to-one match with all the labels on that list. I think it's going to be more organized by like, I'm going to make this update, that update, based on this kind of, using, I always pick Vampirism for some reason as an example, but it's like, okay, Vampirism update or Vampirism expansion 1 or economy systems update 1, right? Or like have just all of that stuff, economy expansion, like organized, like how is it now? What is the stuff? How do we want it different? How are we going to make it different? Like this kind of stuff. And with all of the links to the appropriate mods. And I think it's really fun, right? I think it's super, super sick. And when Trello is a really cool tool, when it's cooperating, I also recognize that we're asking it to do a lot here. Yes, so Monique, that exact thing is why I feel like this transparency initiative is so important to me and to us. So I think it's going to be really rad. And also, you can see me going through live and doing these sometimes. Poor Lizzie gets emails, well, at least one every 2 hours, I think she said, where I just summarize. Yeah, sometimes it really is. Sometimes Trello, there's like some shit that it'll do every once in a while. But it's pretty good. Like if we let's pick like a random one. So name something on this list that you guys see. First one that I see, and I'm going to click it, and we'll kind of go through. You can see like how it works or how we've organized these things. And in the meantime, yeah. So I'm almost done with that, and I don't know. I'm pretty stoked. And like sometimes it's just fun to go through and look at all the different labels and like see what other mods are like suggested in these areas. Because it's crazy. It's also just been a lot of fun getting to see like I do try to keep my ear to the ground in terms of like just what's going on out there, right? And like I am in a lot of areas like on Discords and stuff, chatting with other authors. So I do typically tend to see the biggest things that are coming out, but sometimes just, I don't know, you have hella cool mods that will sort of fly under the radar and I just never hear about them. And then someone will suggest it and I'm just like, yo, what the fuck is this? This is crazy. This one's not labeled. Oh. Okay. Well, I can add labels to this. I'm going to say this would be environment visuals. There you go. Say ultra. Yeah, there's so Lizzie made, at this point I probably made, I don't know, maybe like 100 cards. Cause I added like excuse me, like 50 yesterday alone. But I've also been doing a bunch of these. So yeah, Lizzie, every other card that you see here, Lizzie created. And I just go through, I label them, I add notes on them, I mean, really, I don't have to add like links or anything. She's already done that too. Yeah, actually, Lizzie is like if anything that is unassigned. Am I disconnected from Trello? Reload. Yep. Exactly, Rust. Anything that Lizzie added will be unassigned. Like the user who created it is called unassigned. I don't know if it says that anywhere here, but if we find one here, like that has like a link, yes, Google's Imperial Bank by unassigned. This is how you know it's made by Lizzie. Yeah, it's really great, right? But it's not so bad. I feel like we've learned well, now that, I mean, the fact that Lizzie, she also had to go through and add all the cards from my big spreadsheet that I had been keeping for like all the ones that I have in here. There's a bunch of different ones. But yeah, it's crazy to think that we have, what was the grand total? 1,376. How many mods are there in Skyrim SE, like alone? Here, I'm gonna go over here, just in case. Y'all know how it is. We did this calculation the other day, but I forgot. Whoa, what? Show player and menus. Whoa, what? What the fuck? You guys see this? 54K in English, huh? Look at this shit. This is cool as hell. Oh, yeah. Fuck. Oh, it's already on there? There you go. User suggestions. Users... Well, that's the other cool thing about the Trello board is that, like, all those little ones... Yeah, oh, I mean, I guess I said this, but it's like that I wouldn't get to see... But did y'all... I know some of you saw this. This was... Since we haven't gotten to see each other in a while, this happened between the last time I saw you and the last... Oh, and now. Oh my gosh. Gosh. The constructible object custom keyword system. This is nuts. The one that Parapets created, right? This business, if you haven't seen it yet, is absolutely nuts. This is huge. This allows me to do so much. Like the toolkits, right, that I added were in many ways intended to do this kind of organization primarily. The fact that I can create custom versions of this is so actually crazier beyond even just the crafting system, because there are certain things that you can do with the crafting menu that work for other areas of the game. Like the crafting menu has certain attributes that make it kind of the best way to do certain other things. A good example of this would be, y'all know that I love dealing with backstories, right? Yeah, that is true, Monique. I just, like, some of these mods have to get ports, right? Like, I don't know. I just would be surprised. I don't know how long it's going to take, and maybe it won't happen. So dealing with backstories is the really cool, like, kind of character creation expansion mod, right? This is amazing. Dealing with backstories, if you're not familiar, here, let's just read it together, shall we? Backstory, I'm trying to find, yeah, okay, so other mods let you pick a class. Let me make this bigger for you guys. There you go. Other mods let you pick a class to choose who your character is, but don't let you choose where your character has come from and how they got here, which are critical for establishing where they are going. Dealing with backstories lets you choose whether you were born with good genetics, which god your family worshipped, what your favorite childhood games and adolescent interests were, what your driving desires are, among other things. This makes the character feel like less of a drop-in who materialized the moment you hit new game. Secondly, it allows you to choose your character's age. In most other character creation mods, character age is a purely cosmetic thing you choose with the race menu sliders that has no in-game effects. A 20-year-old and a 60-year-old both start with the same stats and skills. Dealing with backstories differentiates between the ages. For example, younger characters have less skills and money, but older characters are less physically robust and slower to learn new tricks. This is so sick. It's just awesome. It's it basically mechanizes. I don't know. Mechanicizes like your D&D backstory, right? Which we already kind of do with like my custom character wrapper for Unbound, but just this goes further, right? And you can see here in this video that one of the ways that the author has accomplished this is by letting you use the what's it called? The crafting menu as like a multiple choice, like pick many, not multiple choice, pick several type menu, right? There are so many cool things, or like one of the things like I was thinking about for our new weapons and armor system, allowing like a custom like sword or weapon creation thing, right? Where it's like, okay, choose a hilt, choose a blade style, choose a pommel. This is something you can accomplish more easily with crafting menus than with other menus, and it's just like really intuitive, and I'm super easy, or not. I'm super easy. I'm really familiar with the crafting menus at this point, so I like making stuff with them. And yeah, the additional categorization is just absolutely a godsend for this kind of thing. And really, it makes it fundamentally change. I'm not sure even if I'm going to keep the toolkits entirely. I proposed removing them to Lizzie, and I think a lot of people like the toolkits for one reason or another. One thing they also do is explain why you are able to make some of the stuff that you're able to make at the various stations. But I think they're also a bit confusing for some of the new players. We can tutorialize them better, but suffice to say, I'll find like whatever makes the most sense and provides the best experience, whether it's keeping the toolkits, adjusting how they work, or like figuring out how they work with these new categorizations. But it's really fucking cool that we can do this now. This is the kind of thing that like, you guys know, yeah, so the whole tangible items bit, that I would need to, even if I got rid of the toolkits, there would be some sort of continuation of that. So it would be like, if you have toolkits in your inventory or something, and then you use one of these stations, then the stuff gets unlocked that way, right? Because there's the problem with the toolkits is that like some of these tools would presumably be in like both of them, right? Like the smith's toolkit and the jeweler's toolkit would probably both have some sort of iron mallet, right? Or like furniture craft, or whatever the other ones are. Which makes it kind of annoying to carry them all around, right? So it might be that toolkits become individual tools that you carry, right? The open all function for toolkits would basically just be your crafting menu, the player crafting menu. So if you hit right shift, then it will, like everything that's in the toolkits is, the toolkits are really just like, if you click them by themselves, that is just a sorting feature. That's the part that is most unnecessary now with this mod, right? With this one that's called, hopefully I don't get demonetized if I show cocks, right? Not literally, but the word. This is Fuzzles. For those of you who don't know Fuzzles, he's the best. But yeah, so this constructible object keyword system, that component of the toolkits is almost entirely replicated by this, so you can organize it way more easily. So I don't know about that, but we'll see. We'll do what makes the most sense. Also, wait, can I go back to... This is the coolest song. I'm going to turn this up for a little bit. Items mod turns the map into an actual theme. Yes, that's Sakra's mod. One of the cool bits about the mod suggestion board being where it is that there are a lot of mods that are super cool that we can add very easily, knock on wood. But I have certain types of mods are not hard to implement. Just quick little fixes that improve a bunch. Hell yeah, Monique, I did see that. Yes, of course, Liam. The what DAR is being updated by Ursh? What? Hey. Well, okay, so if we get also Ursh, absolute legend. I mean, it's not like you need my opinion on that. I think everyone agrees at this point because precision is amazing, and then the dynamic collision box for moving people up and down, amazing. But also, you never really know who the people are, right? Like behind the mods, and Ursh, at least in every experience I've ever had with him, has always just been like the sweetest, kindest person. And yeah, just an absolute like I'll have like questions that he'll take the time that so many people are like will take the time out of their day to answer my questions, and I just really appreciate it, and I try to pay it forward. Um, what was the there was something on this. Well, it was on here that I was trying to look at. Hold on, going back to oh, that's what I was gonna do. I wanted to do a percentage calculation here. So Lizzie, you said that there's 54,000, 54,000 mods in total on Special Edition Nexus. So we'll do. I'll just say that. All right, 54,000. Let me find the exact number as well, as long as we're here. What do I just search? Like an empty search box? Yep. Oh wow. Okay. I'm gonna. Oh, let me. Language. English. If I limit it to just English, it's actually 39,393 according to this. I'll show you. Whoa, gotta scroll up. Whoa, gotta scroll up more. Oh no, okay, we're kind of good, right? Like that's fine. Zoom in. There you go. I excluded translations. Only show translations? How do I even calculate this? Only show translations. Well, I don't know. Either way, we'll just call it a 40,000, 39,393. Say 39,393. No, whoops, wrong way. 6 divided by 39393. It's a palindrome. Is 3%? Am I reading this right? A little bit, like 3.5%. So does that mean that we have 3.5%? You see nipples? Oh shit. If I'm reading this correctly, if I did that math correctly, which is definitely not a given, we have like 3.5% of the mods refine results, filter out, currently filtering by tags, translation. Oh, what? Well, let's do that. Okay. Does that mean what's 47,000? Why is English only saying oh, wait, attributes has images. No, wait. Include adult files, anime, body slide. But is that well, whatever. Well, we'll just use this one. I'm gonna say 47. So by that, say 1376 divided by 47238. So with that, 3% of the mods that are on the Nexus are on our Trello board, which is kind of fucking insane. Like eventually we wouldn't have enough, or like we'd run out of mods to categorize, which is kind of crazy. Not like that's necessarily a goal or something that we should aspire to, but it would be really cool, wouldn't it be? It's just not a. That's not a useful, or it's a. That's not a high priority use of time, I would say. Okay, I'm going to play this song. And what time is it right now? 2:30. Oh shit. Okay, so so I gotta go and not too long here, but I did want to ask you guys. So the streams, right? My schedule for Friday is still the one that's kind of up in the air. I would like to continue streaming on Fridays. I think it would be. I'm of two minds. On the one hand, I feel like the streams are obviously time that I can spend doing other things, like development tasks, whatever it is. But on the other hand, I don't really get to like touch base with you guys and kind of connect all that often. So I'd like to keep the streams if possible. What I kind of wanted to ask, one of the things that I worry about in terms of the streams is just like the the quality of the content, or like the entertainment value, I guess you might say. So I've been trying to think of how best to. Geez, excuse me, I'm having my second cup of coffee for the day. Um, if no streams, a good substitute is more frequent dev bug. Oh shit, I got my eyes crossed there. More frequent dev updates on Patreon or something. Okay, gotcha, Finn. I should still be able to do that as well. I do think it's fun to be able to interact kind of person to person, so to speak. Um, how about I was thinking this as an idea. So we have this huge list, right? Of I would say that needs further assessment is probably the biggest list categorically. Yeah, it already is. So of the, I mean, approved is pretty large. It's the second largest one. So there's a lot of mods that are in needs further assessment. You can almost look at this as like the maybe category. Yeah, and while I'm saying this, yes, please, if we have other ideas for like patron stuff, patron polls for stream topics and themes, I can just do anyway, just to see what people say. But if you have any ideas just for Patreon things, please feel free to list them out or send them to me, or whatever you want to do. So the needs further assessment category, a lot of the stuff that's in there is stuff that's like, okay, this seems like really like it could be cool. I have like a fear about what the implementation might be, or like it's really cool on paper, but I'm not sure how it will play in context, or yeah, this would be really cool, but like maybe there's performance issues that we have to see if they exist. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So there's a lot of like it's exactly what it says. It's needs further assessment. So like here is a good one. Stealth kills for followers, standalone, adds a dialogue based command for follower stealth melee kills. Oh, this is the one that has like the information on it. What is this? As far as I can tell, there are two mods that add a follower sneak attack system / command. This one and stealth kills for followers standalone. The latter differs in that the command is issued through dialogue and there is no ranged option like in this one. This is more fully featured, but also blah blah blah. You guys can read it. Helps to have a map is on here. So this is yeah. So I need to assess these myself. But I was thinking, I feel like the mod assessment streams have been pretty fun because it gives us constant topics to kind of talk about and things of that nature. I was thinking like, what if most of my streams, the other kind of the thing that I think my streams are missing in a big way is gameplay, right? I think most of us like to watch, even I like to watch gameplay in like, actually in a Suicidal Killer's recent video where he goes over 1.2 and kind of all the stuff it's going to bring, which is excellent, by the way. Thank you so much for putting that together. The team posted that and linked me to it, and I was like, what? Like, no way. So that was really, really cool. And I strongly encourage everybody to check it out. I thought that maybe using the streams as an opportunity to, because I have to gameplay test those anyway. I have to be in game to address whatever concerns landed them in this category. So I don't know. I thought that could be a cool concept for the stream. I thought it might kind of combine the best elements of the evaluating the suggestions, but also give us something to look at and to play and to wander around in the game that we're building, right? Yes, fan content channel. Also, if the auto filter doesn't get rid of it, feel free to link it here in the chat. I don't mind at all. But it might. I don't really know how the auto filter thing is. What? I did not see that CP. That's crazy. What the fuck? Where do you mind letting me know where I can find the information on this? Wild. That would be super weirdly timed based on the conversation that we had today. Ah, what's up? What's up, Lizzie? Comes from an unreliable source, huh? We talking? Oh, game rant. Let's see. Skyrim paid marketplace rumor. Let's see. Bethesda fans believe blah blah. Well, that there's no way they did this independent research. So whose thing are they borrowing here? Uh, Bethesda launch. Monitor. Yeah, that's the background. Well, they did the research. Huh. Interesting. Okay, this was not so bad. Is this Juicehead? What is this video? Wow. Oops, my bad. Is everything they're saying here from this video? Okay, so they still just did. Come on, guys. I mean, here I am. Juicehead is the unreliable. Yeah, I mean, Juicehead. I wouldn't call him an unreliable source. I would call him like a highly speculative source. But there's nothing wrong. I mean, that's kind of content. That's how it goes. If these like if it's based on like reasonable assumptions like this thing with where it's like Minecraft had the same thing happen, and as long as they're like I mean, this is such a clickbaity like thumbnail, but I get it. I absolutely do get it. I do wonder about stuff like this, like where this is the thumbnail, right? That wouldn't that like piss people off? Like, wouldn't you like end up kind of going in there and then it's kind of not what you advertised it to be or what can reasonably be inferred as what you're advertising it to be, and you'd be like, what the hell? Also speculates it's just a framework demo for future Bethesda releases. And watch a bird fly by and then make up a video that the next Cyberpunk update might or might not have a bird. Yikes, that's far. Now, I haven't seen like a ton of Juicehead's videos, but I would not even go anywhere near as harsh as that. I remember he made a video on Ultimate Skyrim or Wildlander or something one time. And this was like at the time when it was like semi-controversial, right? But I liked that video. I thought that it was like fair. It presented the information and kind of looked at some of like the various like sides and factions like in it. But I can't say the rest of this. Ended up clicking away. Yeah, because the thumbnail because it wasn't really accurate. That's the part where I feel like you might upset somebody or like upset somebody. It's a YouTube video, so how upset should we really get? But we will. I'll get upset. I'm a gamer. I'm a capital G gamer, and I am upset. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. SEO is powerful. My first Wildlander vid. Yeah, I believe that, Liam. It's actually so. This is Oh fuck! So I forgot to say this part. This was like the most important bit. I can't believe I waited until like the very end of the stream to talk about this. But I wanted to set like a concrete goal, right, and share some of the stats. So, also my headset just scared the shit out of me because this headset, when it's low battery, it like beeps and says low battery, please recharge, and you can't change how loud that is, and it scares me every time. Yo, thank you for 2 months. Suicidal. How did I miss that, or did I not? Who can say? Okay, so here's what I wanted to do. This will be, and then I'm gonna have to round out pretty quick here. Um. Oh wait, can we listen to this song real fast together? I have time for that. You guys have played Hades, right? I'm gonna turn this audio up just a little bit. No, no problem, CP. I mean, I covered everything else. I just forgot to cover these stats. This is fun. This is like the 1 year anniversary stats. Here we go. This is my favorite song in Hades. I mean, it's also like the theme music. How's that? Is that loud enough? Oh, it gets better even. Oh, you know it. I'll grow my hair out again. Because, you ever seen what my hair used to look like? Oh, this is a long song. It's gonna take a hot second to get to the other good part. Because the whole song's already the good part, but there's a good part. You'll see. Check this out. I'm going to zoom in and crop this so that there's no identifying information. There you go. Check this out. It's on my birthday though. You guys want to see what I looked like when I was 16? This is when the headbanging would have been better. You see that? There's enough glare. There we go. I was also a lot more of a hardcore kid at this time, although I still am at heart, I like to think. That was also, could you tell that I was on the swim team and water polo team? Where you beat me up, I promise you yeah, the dead eyes, that's what really makes it. I promise you I would not have. Yes. Man, this is a long song. I don't want to skip through it, though. Well, either way. So, if you guys can still hear me, I'll lower it just a bit. Guess how much... Well, I'll just tell you. I don't want to make you guess. So, I have no way to pin down the exact stats. These are pretty close. This is an approximation, but it should be pretty close. The total downloads that Wildlander had... Oh, wait. This is the good part. Ready? Here we go. I wonder if I'll get demonetized for this. So sick. It's worth it. I don't really earn much on ad revenue. My headphones are gonna fall off. It's like so fucking ridiculously sick. Oh yeah. Like an eerier doom. Oh yeah, most definitely. It's a little breakdown. Listen to that double bass. I guess some be a single bass. Oh. I wish this is what it sounded like when I fight my dad. Alright, that's basically, you get the idea at that point, but it's fucking, it's just so sick. I just love it. Ah. So, you know that you've got a good track on your hands when you're playing an action game, and you're like, actually, I feel fucking pumped now, and I want to, like, do good. Oh, love it. Alright, so, I'll leave you guys with this. So it's hard to calculate the exact numbers on how many downloads we got, etc. But based on the closest that we can get with trying to account for the estimations, our total number of downloads, not unique downloads, but total number of downloads, was a smidge over like 50,000 for the year. Our total number of unique downloads was like, I actually, because it's like the total downloads includes like re-downloads, right? So that's not as, it's still a cool metric, but it's not quite as cool. Guess what percent of that was unique downloaders? I'll just tell you too. I don't want to make you guys like guess necessarily. %. Ooh, 88. It's not 88. I can tell you that. Oh, wow. 2 at the same time. At least 23. That's a good guess because it's like Price is Right rules, right? Actually, I'm going to hear quietly off screen. I just want to make sure I get the percentage right here. Okay, so again, this is based on my attempt to estimate the unique because we lost. Unfortunately, with how we crashed everything on the launch day, there's a fair amount there that we actually don't have collated in some of these. But the percent that I have, it's like 31,000 approximately, I believe. 31 or 32,000 of those are unique downloaders. So about 63%. Which I personally was very stoked about. I was like, that's just fucking, it's pretty wild, right? So for that's all in 1 year, and that is with no. Okay, from a marketing standpoint, we have not done shit really. Any of the marketing that applies here, it would just be like, it's not even marketing really. It's people who knew about Ultimate Skyrim and who are waiting for Wildlander, or it's people who somehow found out about Wildlander through word of mouth, I guess, through friends, through other kind of tertiary content that's being created for it, which that would count as marketing. It's just not marketing that we've done. So I'm really stoked about that. And so this was the these were the reason I wanted to bring these metrics into the mix is in the interest of setting goals, right, for 2023. This time next year, yes, Liam, your stuff absolutely does count as marketing. It's what you would call not indirect marketing. Like it's something where it's like it's not marketing that we produced, but it's marketing that exists for. It's still like factored into the umbrella of what you would call product-led growth. I also could be using these terms incorrectly because this is just what I've managed to glean from like my wife and her work, and she knows a lot more about these things than I do. But yeah, what's like evangelizing. She was telling me the other day too that like a lot of companies are actually hiring for like roles that are called like evangelists within their company. Like they'll find someone like a sales engineer or something, someone who knows the product and can be like an evangelist for it, and that's like their full-time job, which is kind of crazy. But that it's people creating marketing content about it, or creating content that serves as marketing. It's like that's still what you'd call product-led growth. And product-led growth is generally supposed to mean that the product itself is driving people to like talk about it and share it, right? So that's really with anything, I think that's kind of the best thing that you can have, because you could have like a massive marketing push at the start of something it gets a lot of people to adopt it or to try it, but then they don't stick with it, right? And or they think it's not good, and then you won't be hearing about it. It won't be like product led. Like you can have something that sucks that gets a really good marketing budget, people go to see it, and then they don't like it. But this is kind of the inverse of that. And product led growth is not like, you know, you still like it can still be enhanced by additional marketing, right? But I think that it's important to make sure you have something that people like first, or that it is solid at what it's trying to do. Anyway, my goal for 2023 is to take, now the total downloads one, I'll table that one. I don't really know what to, because again, people might like, everyone who's already playing, the more updates we release, the higher that number is going to go, I think, according to the things that track it. So we'll table that one. I want to get I'm shooting for 100,000 unique downloads by the end of this next year. That is, in my opinion, that would be over 3 times, or just about 3 times the amount that we got this year. So I know it's a really lofty goal. I really want to, I didn't want it to be too low. I don't know what's reasonable to expect. I really don't, but I'm really going to be trying both. I mean, we got development, we have marketing in the pipeline too. We've got trailers, we've got videos. And I hope to just keep improving the thing itself, right? And like with the improved processes and everything that we have. So and I thought, you know, that nice even 100K number would be so fucking cool to hit. Again, I recognize that's 3 times what we got in the first year. But I don't know. I think that it would be awesome. And I think that it's not so crazy. I think it would be really hard to hit, but I think it's not so crazy unreasonable that it's impossible. And that's what I'm trying to hit for this year. So there we go. 2% of 0 is impossible. Right? Oh, gotcha. Anyway, so that's my goal. And this is really the part where, and I said this already, but like, guys, so if we accept the premise that I just posited, that all of the adoption of Wildlander is product-led growth, what that functionally means is that everyone who plays and supports and talks about the project kind of is responsible for that, right? Everyone who's been following my work, for the share of people who played Ultimate Skyrim and have followed my work since then, like all of you guys, and then now like everyone beyond that who's come in at Wildlander and then spread it around, like what the numbers that we've pulled are from y'all. So give yourselves a round of applause. And I really cannot, there are no words to express how grateful I am for all of the support to everyone on the team. I mean, I hope you guys know this by now, but, and I do try to say it, but like, I hope you fucking know like how much I appreciate you guys. It really does. It fucking floors me every time like we're working on something, you know, the story. And yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for this year, guys. It's you know, the turn of the year is just it's a day like any other or whatever. But I feel like there was really, I mean, over the course of the whole project, but in the last year especially, I feel like there's some really hard-won lessons. I've never felt like we and I myself, I don't think the team generally has as much issue looking at the project realistically as I do. I think that's, you know, maybe that's just common for anyone who's kind of like in that seat. But I do not feel like there's ever been a point at which I've been looking more realistically at the project and just, you know, my other responsibilities. I don't think there's ever been a point, I know that there's never been a point in which I felt more excited for the project. And it's like that first point then matters a lot, because I feel excited and I feel like it's based on realistic expectations, which is a new strategy for me. That's crazy, Queen. Also Rasputin, that's very kind of you to say. But yeah, so I don't know, y'all. Like, and I'm gonna do my very best to make it just as good as I can make it. And let's enjoy the ride, shall we? Because that's all really anything ever is the ride. So let's enjoy it. How's that sound? And with that, Wildlander's canceled. I'm just kidding. That's crazy. Y'all are nuts. That's so cool. Oh shit. Well, that's the other thing. That's something I forgot, Lizzie, in my list of requirements. Maybe we won't call it a requirement, but I can maybe add like a page on the wiki or a... It's like, yeah, debated. It's done. I'm removing it today. You thought the best, not even the best, the longest bait and switch. Red dot on my shoulder. Am I gonna get sniped? That's not good. I hope not. I got work to do. But I was gonna say just make the old one. Oh well, we can't provide support, but just make it a little easier for people to grab if they want to, like the LE one. But anyway, that's a problem for us. You guys don't have to worry about that. Let's go ahead and see who is online that we can raid. Give me a... Oh, dang. I was really hoping for a Skyrim streamer today. But you know what? These are all good. It's like, what? Guys, should we... Ew. I don't like looking at myself in the thing. We should raid Hassan, right? Ever tell you guys about when I met? I told you about when I met Hassan. Met is also a strong word, but I did, technically. I gave him my Big Mac. I always say that every time. It's funny to me. I don't know. I did get to, like, shake his hand. I like Hassan. I don't really watch the big streamers, but he's, you know, he seems... Sometimes I'm fucking afraid to be like, I like this person, and then just, like, there's hella... Whatever. I don't know. I can't get into it. Hassan's always seemed cool to me. I like a lot of the things he says that I see like clipped. Yeah, I met them. It was like Tyler was doing work for the girlfriend, or it's been Table, I think. I don't know what she's doing with this business idea. I thought it was pretty cool. I'm actually not going to say what it is, because then maybe I'm going to jeopardize it. But Tyler was doing design work for the girlfriend of Courage. Courage JD is his name. And so we went to a party at that like 100 Thieves like Cash App compound, the one that's in Donkey's video, which was fucking so wild. That was so weird. It was cool to experience, but just such a, like, Dylan Francis played there for this thing. It was like the 100 Thieves like launch party for like a merch line or something. Anyway, we went to like Courage JD lives with like a couple other like big streamers, YouTube and Twitch streamers. So we went to their house afterwards, and like, you know, it was just people there. YouTube spam. Wow, we haven't been getting that as much. Well, here. I'm gonna beat you, spam bot, by raiding and getting away. But okay, so who are we gonna raid instead? Let's do... Honestly, y'all know Linkus. Linkus is amazing, right? Like, Zelda. Yeah, it's been better. Maybe just the team now is, because I moderated them, so maybe they've just been more on it. I can't say. But Linkus is the best. Linkus is a really cool Zelda streamer. So we're going to raid him. Linus. Also, I mean, it'd probably be weird if we said something about this, but I believe he just got engaged. So that's cool. Yeah, deleting it doesn't delete it on... Oh yeah, you're right. So maybe it's just been better. Yeah, Finn's on it anyway. Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was a really fun stream. I know we didn't do much in the way of stuff we normally do, but I hope you had fun. And yeah, I think the other streams are going to be fun too, if we're going to be doing kind of live gameplay, right? Who doesn't like that? I like that. I can only speak for myself, but I think you guys would too. And I think that's everything. If I forgot anything important, I'll send a really annoying everyone ping and get it to you guys that way. And beyond that, yeah, thank you guys very much for a year of Wildlander. That's absolutely wild to think about. And I really appreciate it. You really made it happen. That is like factually true. Um, so yeah, I thank you very much. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Please take care of yourselves. I'm gonna, here, let me move this over and double check that I'm good to go for next Friday. And yeah, I should be. So I'll see you 1 week from today, and we'll go over all the latest. All right. Take care of yourselves. Have a good week. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Bye, everybody. Oh no, I gotta hit the raid button. Bye.